Welcome to our latest video, where we'll be exploring the weird and wonderful world of Australian laws. From bizarre regulations to downright absurd rules, we'll be counting down the top 10 Australian laws that will shock you in 2025. Get ready to be amazed, amused, and maybe even a little outraged, as we delve into the strange and quirky laws that govern life down under. 10. In certain circumstances, Australian law permits public urination, but with a peculiar caveat. According to the law, if a person is in need of urinating and a toilet is not readily available, they are allowed to urinate on the rear left tire of their vehicle. This unusual provision, which may seem absurd, was originally intended to provide a practical solution for drivers who are caught short while on the road. While the law is rarely invoked, it remains on the books as a quirky reminder of the country's pragmatic approach to problem solving. Today, the law is largely seen as a humorous anomaly, but it still has the power to raise a smile and spark conversation. 9. In Australia, a peculiar law regulates who can change light bulbs. Specifically, the law requires that only licensed electricians are permitted to change certain types of light bulbs, such as those in commercial or industrial settings. This law, which may seem overly restrictive, was originally intended to ensure public safety and prevent electrical accidents. While the law may seem excessive, it remains in place as a reminder of the country's commitment to maintaining high standards of electrical safety. Today, the law is largely seen as a necessary precaution, and Australians generally accept the need for licensed professionals to handle electrical work, including something as seemingly simple as changing a light bulb. 8. In Australia, a surprising law prohibits individuals from wearing superhero costumes in certain circumstances. Specifically, the law makes it an offence to wear a superhero costume, such as Batman or Robin, in a way that is deemed to be threatening or intimidating. This law, which may seem unusual, was originally intended to prevent vigilantism and maintain public safety. While the law is rarely enforced, it remains on the books as a reminder of the country's commitment to maintaining law and order. Today, the law is largely seen as a quirky anomaly, but it still has the power to spark debate about the limits of free expression and the role of superheroes in modern society. 7. In Australia, a bizarre law prohibits individuals from wearing certain items of clothing that are deemed to be the tools of a cat burglar. Specifically, the law makes it an offence to wear black clothes, felt shoes, and black shoe polish on one's face, as these items are considered to be the disguise of a cat burglar. This law, which may seem absurd, was originally intended to prevent theft and burglary. While the law is rarely enforced, it remains on the books as a quirky reminder of the country's creative approach to crime prevention. Today, the law is largely seen as a humorous relic of the past, but it still has the power to raise a smile and spark conversation. 6. In Australia, a peculiar law prohibits obscene singing in public. The Summary Offences Act of 1966 makes it an offence to sing an obscene song in a public place, with penalties including fines and even imprisonment. This law, which may seem draconian, was originally intended to maintain public decency and prevent offence. While the law is rarely enforced, it remains on the books as a reminder of the country's commitment to public morality. Today, the law is largely seen as a relic of a bygone era, but it still has the power to raise eyebrows and spark debate about the limits of free expression in public spaces. 5. At Brighton Beach in Melbourne, Australia, a unique law regulates the type of swimwear allowed. Specifically, the law requires bathers to wear a neck-to-knee swimsuit to swim. This modesty law, which dates back to the early 20th century, was originally intended to maintain moral standards and prevent public indecency. While the law may seem outdated, it remains in place as a nostalgic reminder of the beach's rich history. Today, the law is largely symbolic, but it adds to the beach's charm and character. Visitors to Brighton Beach can still enjoy the sun, sand, and surf, all while adhering to this quirky and nostalgic dress code. 4. In Australia, a peculiar law requires bars to provide accommodations for the horses of their patrons. This unusual regulation, which dates back to the 19th century, was originally intended to ensure that horses were properly cared for while their owners were enjoying a drink. The law stipulates that bars must provide a stable, water, and food for horses, effectively making them equine-friendly establishments. While the law may seem outdated, it remains in place as a nostalgic reminder of Australia's rich equine history. Today, the law is largely symbolic, but it adds to the country's quirky charm and highlights its commitment to animal welfare. 3. In Queensland, Australia, a unique law requires taxi cabs to carry a bale of hay in the trunk. This unusual regulation, which dates back to the early 20th century, was originally intended to provide food for police horses in the event of an emergency. Although the law may seem outdated, it remains in place as a nostalgic reminder of Queensland's rich history. While it's unlikely that many taxi drivers actually carry hay in their trunks, the law has become a popular talking point among locals and tourists. It's a quirky example of Australia's sometimes eccentric legislative landscape and a testament to the country's ability to balance tradition with modernity. 2. In Western Australia, a peculiar law prohibits individuals from possessing more than 50 kilograms of potatoes. This unusual regulation, which appears to be a relic of a bygone era, has been in place for decades. The origins of this law are unclear, but it's believed to have been enacted to prevent potato hoarding and ensure fair prices for farmers. While it's unlikely that anyone would be prosecuted for exceeding the potato limit, the law remains on the books as a quirky example of Australia's sometimes bizarre legislative landscape. Despite its seeming absurdity, the potato possession law has become a popular anecdote among locals and tourists alike. 1. In a bizarre law that has raised eyebrows, the town of Toowoomba in Queensland, Australia, has a peculiar regulation that prohibits wearing hot pink hot pants after midday on a Sunday. This obscure law, which seems to defy logic, has been in place for decades, with its origins shrouded in mystery. While it's unclear what prompted this unusual legislation, it's worth noting that the law is rarely enforced, and its main purpose seems to be as a quirky conversation starter. Despite its seemingly frivolous nature, the hot pink hot pants ban remains an amusing anomaly in Australia's legal landscape.